they cried out in fear, for behold, but immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you in the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So far the text. My dear friends in Christ, something like this has probably happened to you. It happens early on in relationships all the time. You meet someone, a new family member, a first date, a co-worker, new to the place, and immediately you like something about him or her. Immediately you don't know that much, but you grab hold of some of the characteristics. He's kind, she's hardworking. It's enough to like the person right away. When you speak, that's how you describe him or her. Yesterday I met so and so, and I like her. She's hilarious. That's something that we oftentimes begin our statements with. And when you speak, that's how you describe him or her. Yesterday I met so and so. I like her. She's hilarious. That's how things often begin. Truth be told, you know she isn't only that, but in the beginning you find something and define her or him by that characteristic. For sure, it can go the other way too. Maybe you catch someone at a bad time, and unfortunately you make a quick condemnation. These are first impressions, you know. What happens next? Well, if you invest yourselves enough in that person, you'll find that he or she is more than one description could cover. Maybe a moment arises that tests the person's mettle, and you realize that someone who always struck you as flighty can bear down or rise to the occasion. Or maybe you walk through the valley of the shadow with someone, and that someone you've always seen as happy breaks into a little pieces right in front of your eyes. Maybe that person entrusted to you his deepest fears or her darkest dreams. In moments like those, we have a couple of options. You could try to push the person back to arm's length because you were more comfortable with your caricature, or you might realize that none of us is so easily defined. Now here's the thing. People, by and large, are not poorly written characters who are always this or always that. Life is, always has been, and always will be more complicated than that. People are more complicated than that. They defy our expectations. conversations, because they believe it or not, most people and their goal in life is not to fit nicely into your little categories and show up and to fulfill whatever your need is at that moment. Your funny friend has worries. Your dependable friend fails people sometimes, and he or she even fails you. Well, here's the point. We do the same thing with Jesus. We define him quickly. We define him simply. And because of that, sometimes we're frustrated. Sometimes we're confused when he's more than what we thought. Here's a moment that I had an impact on me. I was having a conversation with a guy. We're facing each other on a plane. Each one of us has that weird seat configuration that would have made anything other than talking awkward. And we got to talking about church stuff. Something he mentioned to me as we talked was how he didn't understand people who went to other churches who often seemed to mourn their faith, to find sadness in their faith. At our church, he said, we have a giant painting of Jesus, and he's laughing. That's the way I like to picture Jesus, he said. For me, Jesus is a guy who has fun at parties. The more I thought about that, well, I think it's kind of sad. For a couple of reasons, I think that. One is because it just seems a little backward to me that he was eager to get rid of any pictures of Jesus that didn't fit that need to be happy. Seems a little shallow and a lot selfish to me. Another reason, certainly Jesus is a guy who sometimes has fun at parties. His first miracle at Cana in Galilee, water into wine, had pretty much zero practical value other than saving the host a good deal of embarrassment. But as much as Jesus surely had fun, he's also a man of sorrows who weeps outside the tomb of a friend and laments outside Jerusalem, who weeps outside the tomb of a friend and laments outside of Jerusalem that its inhabitants are so utterly lost. To be clear, I don't know more about that guy on the airplane than this one conversation. And so who knows? Maybe he has some reason to feel this way, some baggage to unload, some darkness he's trying to escape. The guy isn't just this one conversation. I now wish that I knew more about him. Perhaps ultimately the goal isn't even about him. I know right now the point is about Jesus. John the Baptist wasn't sure about Jesus. So unsure was he that he sent his disciples to Jesus, knowing, John did, that his death was likely at hand. He had seen the whole life through Jesus. He was given purpose by his ministry of preparation for Jesus. And then near the end, he was confused by Jesus because his expectations of what Jesus would be didn't